Savvy Savings.
Exactly that. Time for Savvy Savings. And I really did want to delve into and have a conversation around council tax. Now, struggling households across the country, across the UK, owe billions of pounds of unpaid council tax. That's new figures from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government that show £6.6 billion is owed to local authorities across England. Campaigners have long called for a change in the way that council tax is collected, and the government is proposing a change in the way unpaid bills are chased. But in the meantime, the Treasury is assuming council tax will rise by 5% a year. I want to get more of a London context and understanding, and to help me do that, I'm joined in the studio now with Toby Murray, who is the Policy and Campaigns Manager at Debt Justice. Toby, great to have you on the show. Thanks for coming in today.
Hi, Shay. Thank you so much for having me.
So we're talking, for our listeners who aren't too aware, we're talking of billions of pounds that are owed here, which is no small figure. Why do you think that the amount is so high, firstly, across the country?
It's a really important question, and I think just to put it in a London context as well,
yes.
Analysis out today, £1.4 billion just in London. So a huge chunk of that 6.6 is just here in the capital. Yeah, ridiculous. And there's loads of reasons why it's so high, but the two really big ones that I want to pick up on, one is that we just can't afford it. We are in the middle of a cost of living crisis. Over the last 10 years, we've seen council tax bills go up 54%.
Yeah.
That's a huge rise. All of your listeners will know that all the other bills have been going up as well. Energy bills have skyrocketed, rent, mortgage payments, the food bill, all of those have got more and more expensive. And yet at the same time, over the last 10 years, household incomes have gone up by just 6%.
Okay, so it's not tallying up.
It's not matching.
Yeah,
like we haven't got as much coming into our pockets, and yet there is ever more being asked from us. And so we don't have the money to pay it. And connected to that, back in 2013, we saw these cuts under the coalition government, where previously council tax would have been paid for by something called council tax benefit.
Okay.
People on very low incomes could have got 100%. Sorry, I know this is very technical, but it's very important.
No, but it is. I think you're right in the way that you're breaking it down, because some of our listeners, and I have to put myself in this, to be honest with you, right now, I'm trying to be a sponge and soak it in and learn from you, because a lot of people will be confused. So go through that and take your time with it.
Absolutely. So back in 2013, pre-2013, there was this benefit called council tax benefit, and low-income households could claim that,
right,
and that would pay 100% of their council tax bill. And then in 2013, that was devolved from central government out to local authorities to provide instead.
Sure.
And at the same time, we saw these huge cuts to council funding. And so councils have had to try and provide all that support, but they haven't got the money to do it. And so people who never should have been paying council tax are suddenly finding themselves liable for bills that they can't afford. Those two factors. Bills have gone up, we've got less money in our pockets, and the government is giving us less support. And
if we bring into that context, as you mentioned, Londoners, I mean, you just said earlier on, this is staggering, of the £6.6 billion that is owed to local authorities in England, £1.4 billion of that is from Londoners. So is this also just around, we often will hear from listeners, Toby, talking about how difficult it is to live in London, to find any type of a property to live, but then to be able to afford to live in that property. Is this all coming into why there are so many Londoners unable to pay their council tax?
That's completely it, because I mean council tax is lower in London than it is across lots of the country, and that's a problem in and of itself. But for Londoners, they have huge rents that they're having to pay. They have huge mortgage payments, like very expensive houses if they have that, and the cost of living in London is just higher than it is across the rest of the country. And so they have more coming out of their paychecks, and often they don't have the money coming in to be able to afford it. So it's just very expensive.
And unfortunately, we haven't got any more good news here, because there's a possibility, I should say, it's not confirmed, but a possibility of a 5% rise in council tax next year. So that's a problem perhaps just going to get worse and worse then. Or do we have hope?
It's difficult. It's a really difficult question, because I think that 5%, what we'd love to see is central government stepping in and doing some of that funding. Because councils need that money. Like, they play a very important role in our lives. I think we all jokingly say that all they do is take the bins out, and they're not even doing that anymore.
We've heard it many times,
all the time. But they do so much more than that. They provide adult social care, they provide child social care, and that is a huge amount of the money that they spend, and it's really vital. And if they don't do it, no one else is going to do it. So we do need well-funded councils. But the problem is our council tax system is not very good. It's regressive. And just to explain that for your listeners, a progressive tax is something like income tax. tax, where the more you earn, the more you pay.
Okay.
Whereas council tax, it's the opposite. It's regressive. So the less you earn, the more you're paying proportionally out of your paycheck. So you're probably paying about 5 times more if you're a lower earner than someone who's a higher earner. And that's just because it's a flat fee for everyone regardless.
I mean, that's mind-boggling, isn't it? Because you've already just talked about how Londoners are, an array of Londoners, I should say. I don't want to kind of generalise, but an array of Londoners are really struggling with their day-to-day bills. And then you add into the mix the fact that you're paying just a flat rate for your council tax. Does this come down to some form of, I guess, postcode lottery then?
100%, yeah, across the country, but particularly in London, depending on where you live, you may be paying much more. You may be entitled to different support, so that council tax support benefit that I said. Some London boroughs, Tower Hamlets, for example, still offers 100% council tax support, which is great, but other boroughs have really sliced that, and we've seen lots of cuts to that in the last few years as well. So there's a huge postcode lottery element to it.
So why is it then, just in terms of the wider context, why do people want a change in the way that council tax is collected? Because that's also really important in this conversation.
Yeah. This is a vital question, and I think it will surprise people to hear, unless they've been in council tax debt, how aggressive councils can be. They are the number one user of bailiffs across the country. They use them more than banks use them. They use them more than landlords use them. They account for about 2/3 of civil enforcement action.
Okay.
So they're really, they're very aggressive. They move very quickly. You can go from one missed instalment, so £150, £200, to thousands of pounds of debt within 3 weeks.
Goodness.
Being charged your annual council tax bill within just 3 weeks of a missed payment. So it can move very quickly. The bailiffs rock up your door really quickly. And as you won't be surprised to hear, that is not a nice experience. That is miserable. We hear lots of stories of like the harassment people feel when bailiffs turn up at their door, of feeling very intimidated, of feeling very coerced into making payments they can't afford. It's still the only debt in the country you can go to prison for. Ultimately, like, it doesn't happen loads, but the council can still send you to prison for not paying your council tax debt.
If I can, I appreciate it's going to be a little bit hard, but if I can give the other side of the coin, earlier on you just yourself said council tax is vitally important for our local councils to ensure that the real cohesion of that particular borough is working, is moving, just like the most vulnerable being supported, whether it's the elderly or the adult social care or the child social care. All of that comes from the councils. So that then surely shows why some of these fines are put in so hard, because it's required. Does that make sense?
Completely. And I think the main point I would respond to that with is that most people in council tax debt are really hard up. So 1/3 of people in council tax debt are in poverty, and 80% are in the lowest half of earners. So we're trying to balance the books on the backs of very low income, people finding it very difficult to make ends meet. So we are harassing the wrong people, and actually we need to focus it more. Well, actually, what we'd argue is that we shouldn't really be harassing anyone. There are lots of more humane, lots of kinder ways in which we can collect debt. We see councils around the country, Bristol, Hammersmith and Fulham, Barking and Dagenham, who do things a different way. They have a support-led method. They're very caring towards their residents. And what that does is that returns more money to councils because they are reaching out and offering support rather than punishment. They're reaching out with a hand rather than a stick. And that helps people who otherwise are feeling very kind of under the cosh, they're feeling very pushed down by their debt, reach out and get help and get on top of their bills again. You've
mentioned 3 boroughs there, Hammersmith and Fulham, Barking and Dagenham, and you did earlier on mention Tower Hamlets, didn't you? Yeah. As areas in London, or I should say councils specifically in London, that are able to, or providing that support to the individuals who are unable to pay their council tax. But what about the rest of London? We're a big old place, Toby. What can people do if you're living in London thinking, well, sorry, mate, I'm not living in any of these boroughs, and I can't afford to pay my council tax?
Yeah. Absolutely. It's really tricky. And I think being in debt is a really scary and quite isolating experience. So I think if you are listening to any of this and it is resonating, then the most important thing you can do is reach out for help. Some councils have really useful in-house support teams that they can offer you help with and can get you onto that council tax support that's really important. There's also national charities, citizens advice bureaus. Most London boroughs will have a local citizens advice bureau, and they'll be great at helping you if you can get in contact. Or there's the National Debt Line, Step Change. All of these debt charities can really help people get back on top of their finances.
And whilst I've got you, Toby, I haven't asked you as of yet, tell me a little bit more about what Debt Justice as an organisation, what Debt Justice does.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
That's okay, no, absolutely.
We do community organising across the country, so we campaign for better national policy, but we also work in local areas. So we've got a lot of work going on up in Greater Manchester, but we're also doing lots of work in Tower Hamlets, where we're working with local advice agencies like the Island Advice Centre, but also local residents who are in debt. We're trying to work with them to address issues that matter to them, and one of those big things is bailiffs and council tax. So at the moment, we've got a big campaign going on in Tower Hamlets where we're trying to get the council to recognise the need to move away from using bailiffs to collect council tax and the need to replace it with support instead.
What are residents that you're speaking to, in terms of the organisation with Debt Justice? What are they saying to you? What is it like for them? Can you just paint a picture for me?
Yeah, I think the reason we have focused on bailiffs is that is what everyone comes back to us and says that is the worst bit of being in debt. That is the most acute. That's the sharpest end. I think you find yourself in a situation where you feel very stressed about like what's going on. You know you're in a bad situation, and then you have someone knocking on your door trying to force you to pay money that you don't have, and it doesn't help. If you don't have the money to pay your bill, you're not going to find it suddenly to pay this person who's knocking on your door. So that is the main thing that we hear time and time again, is the worst bit about being in debt is having these people, these debt collectors, these aggressive debt collectors, these bailiffs turn up at your door and try and get money out of you that you simply don't have. So that is a key issue that we're trying to address at the moment.
So how can people get more details? I don't know if somebody's tuned into Radio London and they just want to kind of firstly perhaps share their story, what it's like for them living in London, but maybe they just want to get more of an understanding of what you do. Yeah,
we would love to hear from anyone who's listening. You can find our website at debtjustice.org.uk. Feel free to drop me an email on info@debtjustice.org.uk. We've got a petition up and running at the moment where we're trying to get some national policy change alongside this as well. So you can find that on our Ban the Bailiffs campaign, which you can find on the website. And we would love to hear from anyone. That is the very important thing, is debt can be very scary, but together we can make changes. So if you feel riled up at all about any of this, we would love to hear from you.
Such a pleasure having you on, Toby. Come back, keep us updated on the work that you're doing. Thanks for joining me today.
So
and again, that website, debtjustice.org.uk.